Welcome to the Script Snap. Today we're recapping the 2004 cult classic, Hellboy. Our story begins in 1944, on a rain-swept island off the coast of Scotland. Professor Trevor Brutenholm, a paranormal advisor to President Roosevelt, arrives with a squad of American soldiers. Their mission? Stop the Nazis from opening a portal to a dark dimension, a last-ditch effort to win the war. Deep within the Nazi base, they find a nightmare in the making. Hitler's top assassin, Cronin, stands guard while the sorcerer Grigory Rasputin prepares to bridge the gap between worlds. Rasputin's goal is to awaken the Ogdru Jihad, the seven gods of chaos. As the machine hums to life and the portal tears open, the Americans launch their attack. A well-placed grenade causes a chain reaction, crushing the machinery and sending the ritual into a tailspin. In a desperate move, the professor tosses another grenade directly under the portal. Cronin tries to intercept it, but the blast sends him flying, impaling him on a jagged metal rod. As the machine self-destructs, the portal begins to consume Rasputin, dragging him into the void. The rift finally closes, but the professor is worried. He warns the soldiers that the portal was open far too long. Something may have slipped through. While searching the ruins, the professor shares a chilling detail. Rasputin is no ordinary man. He was poisoned, tortured, and drowned back in 1916, yet here he was, nearly 30 years later. As they talk, a sound echoes from the shadows. The soldiers raise their weapons, but the professor tells them to stand down. Out of the darkness crawls a small, bright red creature. With a simple piece of chocolate, the professor gains the creature's trust. Seeing the childlike demon, he gives him a name that would eventually become a legend, Hellboy. Fast forward 60 years to the frozen peaks of the Bergau Pass in Moldova. A group of explorers uncovers a hidden chamber, marked with ancient symbols. But they aren't alone. The Nazi assassin, Cronin, still alive after all these decades, emerges from the shadows to spill the blood needed to resurrect his master. From the shadows of death, Rasputin returns. Meanwhile, in New York City, a much older Professor Brutenholm receives devastating news. He is diagnosed with a terminal illness, with only 6 weeks left to live. Refusing treatment, he chooses to spend his remaining days at his post. Back at the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense, a young FBI agent named John Myers arrives for his first day. He thinks he's joining a standard government office, but as the lobby floor begins to descend like a massive elevator, he's about to realize that his new job is anything but ordinary. John is ushered into the professor's office, where he's greeted by a sight he never expected: a humanoid amphibian swimming inside a massive glass tank. Before John can even introduce himself, the creature reads his thoughts, reciting John's entire history in a calm, melodic voice. The professor explains that this is Abe Sapien. He was discovered in a secret chamber in Washington, D.C., and his name was taken from a note found on his tank, dated the day of Abraham Lincoln's assassination. The professor leads John deeper into the facility, through rooms overflowing with occult artifacts, and introduces him to a fellow agent. John is handed a stack of chocolate bars, a peace offering, and is led toward a heavy, sealed door. As the door slides open, John realizes the legends are true. Standing before him is Hellboy. Though he's 60 years old, his demon physiology means he's barely reached adulthood. The meeting is tense. Hellboy isn't interested in a new babysitter, but John manages to break the ice with his favorite peace offering, the chocolate. The introductions are cut short by a blaring alarm. It's time for work. The team arrives at a museum under the cover of a garbage truck. Abe Sapien places a webbed hand against the museum doors, his eyes widening with terror. He senses something ancient and purely evil on the other side. Hellboy enters the dark hall alone, finding a trail of dead guards and shattered relics. As he searches, a thick green slime drips from the ceiling. Above him, a monstrous creature is devouring a guard. Abe identifies the beast through the comms: Samael, the Desolate One, son of Nurgle. Hellboy levels his massive revolver and puts a round in the creature. He turns to walk away, thinking the job is done, but Abe warns him that Samael is a resurrection hound. Death is only temporary. By the time Hellboy turns around, the creature is gone. Suddenly, Samael strikes, launching Hellboy through a window and onto the street below. As Hellboy recovers, Rasputin appears in the shadows, calling Hellboy his son and claiming to know his true hidden name. Before Hellboy can pull the trigger, the sorcerer vanishes into thin air. The fight spills into the city. Samael lashes out with a long, muscular tongue, pinning Hellboy's arm. John tries to help by firing his pistol, but Hellboy is annoyed. He's a solo act. He has John load a tracking round, shoots the beast, and chases it into the depths of the subway system. Inside a moving train, the chaos continues. The panicked conductor, terrified by Hellboy's appearance, hits him with a fire extinguisher, knocking him onto the tracks. Hellboy shakes it off, tackles the beast, and snaps its jaw, only to watch the bone knit back together instantly. Realizing brute force isn't enough, Hellboy grabs a live third rail and slams it into the creature. Thousands of volts surge through Samuel, finally stopping it cold. Victorious but exhausted, Hellboy tells John to report the kill to the professor, then shuts off his tracker to disappear into the night. Meanwhile, in the shadows of an abandoned subway station, Rasputin and his loyal followers are busy. The Nazi scientist performs a gruesome ritual, tending to the sorcerer's needs. Rasputin gathers the lingering essence of the fallen Samuel, declaring that the creature has fulfilled its purpose. With a dark incantation, he consumes the soul, and for every Samuel that dies, 2 more are born. While the darkness grows, Hellboy heads to the Bellamy Psychiatric Hospital. He isn't there for a mission. He's there to visit Liz Sherman, a woman with the power to control fire, and the only person who truly understands what it's like to be a monster. Back at the museum, Agent Manning, a man with little patience for the paranormal, questions the professor. Nearby, Abe Sapien places his hand on a relic, a distinctive ancient sword. A psychic flash hits him, and he calls the professor over. Through the object, Abe sees the truth. The Nazi assassin, Cronin, is the one behind the Samael attack. The revelation is so shocking that the professor begins to struggle for breath. As Abe reaches out to steady him, his psychic touch reveals a secret the professor has been hiding from everyone: his terminal illness. Seeking an escape, Hellboy visits Liz at the psychiatric hospital. He vents his frustrations, complaining that the professor is constantly disappointed in him, before pleading with her to return to the bureau. Liz is torn. She hates the hospital, but she tells him she has to stay. It's the only way to keep her pyrokinetic powers under control. When the professor and John arrive to collect Hellboy, Liz leaves him with a stinging parting shot. "If you really care about me, don't come back." Back at headquarters, a medical scan of Hellboy's arm reveals something horrifying. Samael didn't just wound him, it planted 3 eggs inside his skin. Recognizing the threat, the professor orders John to lead a team back into the subways the following day to find the nest. That night, while John researches Liz's history, a dark shadow enters the hospital. Rasputin visits Liz in her sleep, forcing her to relive her most traumatic memories through a nightmare. The surge of emotion triggers her powers, causing a massive explosion that levels the hospital wing. The next morning, John tries to bridge the gap with Hellboy by bringing him a plate of pancakes. He claims his research can help bring Liz home, but Hellboy, fueled by jealousy and pride, ignores him. While John heads to the ruins of the hospital to convince Liz to return, Hellboy and the strike team descend into the lightless tunnels of the abandoned subway. Abe tracks a pulse behind a stone wall, which Hellboy promptly smashes through. Dropping into the water with a glow stick, Abe swims down to retrieve the eggs. But the resurrection hound is waiting. Samael attacks, forcing Abe to hide in the cramped corners of the flooded tunnels. He manages to signal the team above just as 2 more Samuels emerge from the darkness. While the soldiers scramble to defend themselves, Hellboy spots Cronin and gives chase. He loses the assassin but stumbles upon a hidden lair filled with occult research. Above him, a Samael drops from the ceiling, dragging Hellboy down into the tracks. During the struggle, Hellboy manages to save a box of stray kittens before swinging the beast onto the rails. A rushing train finishes the job, pulverizing the creature. Nearby, the eggs begin to hatch. As Abe escapes the water, another agent encounters Cronin. He empties his clip into the assassin, but the bullets have no effect. Cronin closes the distance and ruthlessly stabs the agent. Hearing the gunfire, Hellboy rushes to help. Recognizing the heavy footsteps, Cronin turns a mechanical key in his chest, shutting down his internal clockwork and falling limp, pretending to be a corpse. Back at the bureau, the atmosphere is tense. John has successfully brought Liz back, but the reunion is spoiled by Agent Manning, who calls Hellboy a freak. Enraged, Hellboy storms off to his room. The professor ignores the drama, focusing instead on the body of the Nazi assassin. He discovers a cryptic piece of paper on the corpse and notices the mechanical switch on the chest is still silently rotating. In the hallway, an agent arrives at Hellboy's room with a meal, only to hear a violent crashing from within. He bursts inside to find the room empty. Hellboy has smashed through the reinforced wall. Driven by jealousy, Hellboy has gone AWOL, stalking John and Liz through the city streets. In this moment, he doesn't want to be the world's protector. He just wants to be a normal man. While the professor pores over the scrap of paper in his office, a shadow moves behind him. The corpse of the Nazi assassin has reanimated. Cronin dons his mask and suit just as Rasputin emerges from the darkness to confront the professor. The sorcerer shows him a terrifying vision of the future. Hellboy standing amidst the ruins of the world, having opened the portal to the apocalypse. Facing his end with quiet dignity, the professor tells Rasputin he is ready. In an instant, Cronin's blade finds its mark. Across town, Hellboy's jealousy fades into a sense of dread. He abandons his stakeout of John and Liz, but when he returns to the bureau, he finds his father's body. The loss is devastating. After the burial, a grieving Liz speaks with Abe Sapien. Hellboy has retreated into a silent, stony shell, refusing to speak to anyone. Abe gently advises her that now, more than ever, Hellboy needs her to stay by his side. Meanwhile, the villains have moved to a desolate military base in Moscow. Rasputin and his followers have tracked down a massive, ancient stone, the final key to their plan, paying for it with a fortune in Nazi gold. Back at the bureau, the team finally decodes the clue left in the professor's office. It points directly to Russia. Liz makes a deal with Hellboy. She'll go to Moscow, but only if he leads the way. As they fly toward Russia, Agent Manning reveals a specialized, high-yield grenade, a big gun for a big enemy. Upon arrival, they sneak Hellboy into a snow-covered graveyard hidden inside a cargo box. To find their way, Hellboy performs an ancient ritual, reanimating a withered corpse to act as their guide. The grotesque figure points them toward a hidden tomb, and the mission begins. The group descends into the catacombs, but a series of mechanical booby traps slams shut, separating the team. A heated argument breaks out between Manning and Hellboy, but it's cut short when a massive swinging hammer smashes the bridge. A fellow agent and their undead guide plummet into the darkness. Hellboy narrowly saves Manning, pulling him to safety just as the stone doors seal them off from the others. Sensing a presence, Hellboy creeps into a side tunnel. He finds Cronin calmly listening to a vinyl record in a hidden chamber. Manning accidentally triggers a spike trap, alerting the assassin, who vanishes into the shadows. Seconds later, Cronin reappears, his blade slicing through Manning's jacket. Hellboy intervenes, catching the blade and unleashing a barrage of punches. The assassin doesn't scream, he laughs. As the floor gives way to a pit of spikes, Hellboy grabs a hanging rope. Cronin tries to cut him down, but a distraction from Manning gives Hellboy the opening he needs. He uses the rope to pull the assassin off balance, kicking him into the pit and crushing him with a massive metal wheel. The victory is short-lived. Through the floorboards, Hellboy hears Liz and John in the chambers below. They've stumbled into the heart of the nest, where dozens of Samaels stand guard over a sea of eggs. As the creatures close in, the team is trapped. One of the agents tries to prime the grenade, but a Samael strikes before he can throw it. Hearing the sounds of the struggle below, Hellboy smashes through the floor to reach John's group. He dives headfirst into the fray, taking on a swarm of Samaels single-handedly. Seeing Hellboy overwhelmed, Liz realizes there's only one way to end this. She tells John he has to hit her, to spark the rage needed to ignite her powers. John hesitates but eventually obliges, and the result is a massive, searing pyrokinetic blast that incinerates every Samael in the room. When the smoke clears, the tide has turned. Rasputin and his followers have seized the heavy-duty grenade and used the chaos to capture the team. John wakes to find himself and Hellboy in chains, while Liz lies unconscious nearby. Rasputin reveals the final stage of his plan. They stand before the Great Stone, the threshold to the dimension of the Ogdru-Jahad, the seven gods of chaos. Hellboy's stone right hand is the only key that can unlock the seal. When Hellboy refuses, Rasputin tears the soul from Liz's body, holding her life hostage. To save her, Hellboy finally submits. Rasputin whispers Hellboy's true name, Anung Unrama. As Hellboy repeats the words, his chains shatter. His horns grow to their full, jagged length, and a crown of fire ignites above his head. He slides his stone hand into the lock, and a beam of dark energy shoots toward the moon, tearing open the portal and beginning the release of the seven gods. Seeing the world on the brink of ruin, John manages to free one hand and grabs a rosary. Before Hellboy can turn the final lock, John calls out to him, throwing the rosary and reminding him that he has a choice, that he is the man his father raised, not the monster the Nazis created. Hellboy snaps back to his senses. In an act of defiance, he snaps off his own horns and stabs them into Rasputin. The ritual is broken. The beam of light vanishes, and the Ogdru-Jahad are pulled back into their stony prison. But the darkness isn't finished. As Rasputin dies, a colossal, multi-tentacled behemoth erupts from his body, killing his loyal follower and growing at an impossible rate. Hellboy hands the unconscious Liz to John and prepares for one last fight. John hands him the specialized grenade, though its timer is broken. As Hellboy engages the beast, the creature tosses him around like a rag doll. Hellboy manages to grab a sword from a nearby statue to defend himself, but the behemoth eventually catches him, pulling him toward its massive, tooth-filled maw. Hellboy realizes there's only one way to destroy it from the inside out. As he's swallowed by the creature, he pulls the pins on the belt of grenades. A massive explosion ripples through the chamber, vaporizing the monster from within. Emerging from the wreckage, Hellboy rushes to Liz's side. John delivers the grim news. She has no pulse. Kneeling beside her, Hellboy leans in and whispers a secret into her ear, a message from the other side. Suddenly, Liz gasps for air, her life returning in a flash of blue flame. As the dust settles in the ancient tomb, the two share a passionate kiss. Hellboy has finally decided who he wants to be. Not a harbinger of the apocalypse, but a man who fights for the world he loves. If you enjoyed this recap, please like and subscribe for more. See you next time.